20 years ago, the second version of Apria's RS Cube MotoGP bike made its debut during testing, only to vanish into the night. For the first time ever, we are now bringing to you the full revelation of the wild beast, which made its mark at the 2003 German GP, with Colin Edwards barely escaping the bike's fiery blaze. We know that's definitely got you curious, so keep watching to know more. First up, we're talking about the motorcycle that was born bad. It was the motorcycle of nightmares. For former World Superbike champion Colin Edwards, he called it Born Bad, and his teammate Nori Haga tallied up 28 crashes in a single season. And honestly, we don't really blame Edwards for saying that. The Cube came with many drawbacks, and for professional bikers, its lack of ability to generate satisfying performance was definitely a big one. The reasons for that were its tendency to wheelie, lack of responsiveness in the front end, vibration at both ends, and an irresolute response to the fly-by-wire throttle. All those shortcomings make this bike a pretty dangerous one to ride. And well, what else can you say for a motorcycle that was born bad? Up next, a little history about Apria's first ever MotoGP bike. Time for a blast into the past so that we've got everything covered. First things first, Aprilia took the MotoGP world by storm with the unveiling of the RS Cube in December 2001. Not only was it their first four-stroke MotoGP bike, but it also featured a number of revolutionary technologies that you see in almost every bike on the grid today. Pneumatic valve springs, ride-by-wire throttle, and a carbon clutch. Hold up though, this wasn't the only benefit of Apria's design, because luckily the rulebook allowed three-cylinder machines to have a 10-kilogram weight advantage, and in light of that, this made the RS Cube one of the lightest riders on the grid. Moving on, the development of the Cube was a collaborative effort between Aprilia and well-known British engine specialist Cosworth. This relationship developed as early as September 2000 to create a 990cc three-cylinder engine that would be capable of going toe-to-toe with the more powerful 4- and 5-cylinder machines. Cosworth was an integral part of Apria's plan, drawing on experience in Formula One race car technology to create the revolutionary pneumatic valve Jaguar V10 race motor. The beloved RS Cube was a showstopper when it hit the MotoGP grid at the legendary Suzuka in April 2002. Now for how the Cube had its fair share of disadvantages. While certainly revolutionary for its time, the Cube had plenty of negative points. We went over some a few moments ago, and now we'll dive deeper into the details. There's no denying that the Cube was an absolute thunderous machine, coming out of the blocks with the single-minded purpose of producing incredible speeds. It was the loudest bike on the grid, and was the first four-stroke bike in MotoGP to exceed the 200 miles per hour mark in practice, as seen during the 2002 Italian GP at Mugello. While it may have shown its feats of strength in records and power straight-line speed, unfortunately it wasn't as competent when it came to cornering and navigating through a race. This is why it failed to find the top of the podium even once during its 3-year tenure in MotoGP racing. Moving on, why did Aprilia decide to go with a 3-cylinder engine? Apria's race boss, Jan Witteven, opted for a 3-cylinder engine for several reasons. The main reason for choosing this type of engine was to differentiate Aprilia from its Japanese competitors. On top of that, the rules governing MotoGP favored triple and 5-cylinder machines, with the triple being the more European choice. Witteven wanted to utilize the benefits of Formula One technological advances to develop a high-tech power unit closely resembling a 10-cylinder 3.5-liter F1 car. What's more, from a production standpoint, triples are the most cost-effective engine for a street-legal replica or even a superbike build. Such processes would save time and money down the road. Let's talk about the Cube's crankshaft. Okay, so the Aprilia Cube housed a remarkably intricate engine with a distinct design. The motorcycle's 120-degree crankshaft came complete with evenly spaced throws and a balance shaft to stave off vibrations. These features set it apart in that the crankshaft ran opposite the bike's wheels. The difference gave the Cube increased stability at high speeds and minimal effect at low speeds. What's more, the Akrapovic exhaust system was another incredible insight, consisting of 6 twin-port headers that exit the 3 cylinders and merge into a singular large-diameter exhaust. In terms of power, the Cube was definitely unparalleled. Following up, despite its superiority, the Cube's crankshaft had some problems. The Cube was built with an F1-style crankshaft, providing a boost of acceleration with one catch: it was too fast for either the rider or the rear tire to keep up with. According to Jeremy McWilliams, who raced the Cube in 2004, the engine had a great horsepower rating, yet the torque curve was really weird. To overcome this problem, the engineers worked even harder and used their own fuel and torque mapping to try and level out the curve. But this just caused more sideways movement when the 12,500 RPM peak could be reached. It made for a wild ride, a sentiment which was certainly shared by McWilliams, who said it wanted to kill you everywhere. Ultimately, the conclusion was made that it wasn't possible to increase the inertia of the engine to help provide a smoother torque curve without sacrificing room in the engine itself. What's more, these problems led to Aprilia issuing a redesign in 2005. In an effort to truly revamp the Cube for the 2005 season, Aprilia engineers opted to maintain its original inline triple layout, yet tweaked the cylinder angle as well as upped the significance of the crankshaft inertia. Unlike its predecessors, which held the engine and gearbox as distinct components, they decided to conjoin the two items. In light of that, the configuration of the Cube returned to more of a MotoGP engine rather than an F1 engine. Now, what were the exact changes that they introduced for the new model? Germano Bergamo, Apria's racing vehicle design manager and a veteran of the company since its victorious first world title in 1992, expressed his team's approach to modifying the engine, keeping the pneumatic valves intact while restructuring and reintegrating parts. For example, the scavenge pump was fixed inside rather than on the exterior. Additionally, the countershaft was changed from being beneath the crankshaft to being above it, resulting in a more concise and unified form. These adjustments gave room for the exhaust to be situated closer to the body, providing a place for the radiator and oil cooler to rest. Not to mention, the new engine had a new chassis and a longer swing arm. The arrival of this new engine necessitated the construction of a chassis that was entirely new to the industry. It was designed using a CNC machining method to craft from solid pieces of aluminum alloy, allowing for a higher degree of quality control as each and every chassis created is identical, with no bends or distortions caused by conventional heating and bending techniques. Other than that, the size of the engine was reduced, which consequently gave the engineers an opportunity to add a longer swing arm. Bergamo pointed out that having a longer swing arm benefits the traction and the force of the chain. By having a bigger lever, the rider will be able to tap into the engine's power more efficiently and effectively. A longer swing arm simply equates to a better, more powerful, and more reliable ride. Up next, how they took inspiration from Honda's design of the swing arm. Aprilia took a leaf out of Honda's book when it came to circuitry and fine-tuning the swing arm. Already seen in the RC211V, the most powerful model at the time, Aprilia had a clear goal in mind when making changes to the Cube in 2005. With the aid of the swing arm, they wanted to reduce the noises that the back wheel could transmit to the chassis. To ensure they were aware of all the latest signs of progress, they decided to take a look at what Honda used in the RC211V. Surely enough, theirs was the best motorcycle in MotoGP at the time, prompting Aprilia to eventually implement a similar design. McWilliams and Marcelino Lucchi, a long-standing Aprilia test rider, were the first to experience the Cube in late 2004, but the machine attained little attention due to the fact that everyone was preoccupied with the release of the RC211V, Ducati Desmosedici, and Yamaha YZR M1. Let's go over how Bergamo had high hopes for the Cube's new version. Confidence was in the air for Aprilia with the arrival of their new Cube bike. Bergamo was certain that this would bring them closer to the top of the MotoGP than the original one had. With Edwards scoring 6th place at the 2003 Japanese Grand Prix and the improvements to the machine, Bergamo felt like results could have been better in 2005. Through these improvements, the Cube was able to give an output of a further 10 horsepower compared to the original, reaching a maximum of 240 horsepower at 18,000 revolutions per minute. Now for how the Cube project came to its end with a switch in ownership. In 2004, the Piaggio Group purchased Aprilia and Moto Guzzi. By January 2005, the Piaggio Group had made the decision to discontinue their Cube project and devote their attention to the development of a new Aprilia superbike, the RSV4. The staff at Aprilia Racing were tasked with this challenge, drawing upon techniques and mechanics used in the Cube project, such as the ride-by-wire system and upper and lower injectors into each throttle body. This meant that the same concepts previously used on the Cube could now be applied to the RSV4, allowing for a much smoother and more advanced experience. Lastly, the Cube served as a prototype for the development of the RSV4. In 2009, Aprilia launched its RSV4 engine and proceeded to prove its greatness by claiming 3 World Superbike titles between 2010 to 2014. This same engine was used to power the Aprilia ART in 2012, created to compete in a low-cost CRT category of the MotoGP Championship. The new prototype chassis featured a combination of machined and extruded sections to reduce costs, and Alex Espargaro made good use of the machine, hassling full MotoGP prototypes and earning 2 championship titles. These successes successes created the RSGP family, produced in 2015, which eventually became Apria's first prototype MotoGP bike since the Cube. Every lesson learned stored within the engines of each machine allowed the lineage of the current RSGP to be traced back to the Cube. That's a wrap for this video. What are your thoughts on Apria's Cube? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.